Hi, it's Katy from the Bittersweet Life, the podcast that makes you laugh and cry and seriously consider moving to Italy, or at least quitting your job. If you've ever found yourself loving what we do or listening in on these conversations, now is your chance to prove it. With a little money, just a few bucks a month keeps us telling bittersweet stories instead of bitterly looking for other jobs so that we can pay the bittersweet bills. You can support us now at thebittersweetlife.net/support or find links to donate in the show notes. Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Tiffany in Rome, Katy in Seattle. And today, we're going to tackle something that we should be tackling in October around Halloween, but instead we're going to do it now, right in the heat and depth of summer, here in July. Last night, it just popped into my head. You know what popped into my head was a scary image that I had seen, just a flash of an image that I had seen on television when I was a little kid. It was specifically Richard Pryor, if you remember him as a comedian actor.
Comedian, yeah.
He was in one of the Superman movies. I don't remember which one. And toward the end, he gets electrocuted by a machine. I don't remember all the details, but I remember distinctly him being electrocuted by that machine. And for whatever reason, that image flashed into my head for just a brief moment last night. And I thought, boy, I have not seen that Superman movie ever as an adult. And so why in the world is this flash of an image of Richard Pryor being electrocuted by a machine, which probably, if I were to watch it now as an adult, looks ridiculously fake. You know, it's possible. Why does that image still exist in my head? And so I thought it would be interesting to talk about some of the scary imagery that we happened across as kids and just sort of like explore why they stick around. And I was also thinking about it in the context of our recent conversation about you going to see the Caravaggio exhibit, because if people listening know anything about Caravaggio, it's not just that he's a masterful painter who reinvented the art form to a certain degree. He also painted some really dark and scary things. Like, it's not like if you see Caravaggio paintings, you might see a kid holding a severed head, or you might see a woman slicing off the head of a man with blood splurting everywhere. You might see someone sticking their finger, like literally sticking their finger into the side of Christ. All images that would be disturbing if you were a little kid in a typical circumstance, if you just happened upon it, I would say. So anyway, I don't know, all of that was making me think of these scary images. And then once you think of like Richard Pryor being electrocuted by Superman or however else, I forget how it happens, then I just started thinking of like other scary images that occasionally pop into my head. Not like I'm haunted by them, but you know, they're like...
And they're all images from that you saw in your childhood.
Yeah, I think so. I would say that I was fairly sheltered kid. We weren't allowed to watch a lot of things. My childhood household, when I was growing up, we only got one channel. You know, 'cause it was the only thing our antenna could pick up, and it was CBS. You know, so I saw a lot of the Oliver North trial, but I saw a lot of Murder, She Wrote and 60 Minutes. But there's not a lot of like disturbing content that you just happen across with CBS. And so we didn't watch a lot of television, honestly, because, you know, sometimes you turned it on and there was just nothing on. Like it was, you know, Billy Graham talking about the devil or something. You're like, you know, I think I'm good.
And that might have been traumatic, just that alone.
Yeah. And I think they purposefully kind of tried to keep what we learned and listened to somewhat light. And I think as a result of that, then, you know, when I did see something scary, it latched on even harder. So
it's very similar to my experience. I mean, we did have cable, but I was not allowed to watch a lot of stuff. And I was a pretty obedient child. So I wasn't trying to see stuff that I wasn't allowed to see.
Okay.
And like, here's an example. I remember going to the movies. So my mom wasn't super careful. Like,
Mm.
she probably wasn't nearly as intentionally careful as your parents were. But she still, she didn't, she definitely, even if she didn't go to great lengths to prevent it, she definitely didn't want me seeing certain stuff. And I remember going to the cinema with her and one of her friends, and there was a sex scene. I mean, I wasn't a tiny kid. I was probably 13 or 14. But I just remember her like going, Tiffany, cover your eyes. And I covered my eyes. I literally like straight up covered my eyes. And my mom's friend was like, oh my God, like what? You're actually covering your eye? Like she couldn't believe that I was actually doing it.
Do you remember what
Um,
movie it was by chance?
no, I don't remember what movie it was, and I don't think it was a very graphic sex scene, if I can remember, from what little I saw before I covered my eyes.
Right. Dutifully, yes.
I was not exposed, especially as a young kid, like as a little kid. I was not, there was no horror films that were accidentally, like I was never going to accidentally stumble upon a horror film because they didn't show that kind of stuff on, even on cable TV. They didn't show horror. I
Hmm.
don't think, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, maybe they did, but I will tell you what I remember very, very distinctly from my childhood. And I would guess that some people listening have seen this as well. And it's a film called Watcher in the Woods. Katie, have you seen
Mm.
this film?
I don't think so, but I've certainly heard of it before. Yes.
It came out sometime in the mid 80s. My mom was going out. She had a babysitter for us, and she rented it at the local Island Video. Um,
Yes.
and it was, she thought this is Disney. It's not a cartoon Disney. It's like a regular people Disney, but she thought it looked intriguing and it's Disney.
Hmm.
It was so scary, Katie. It literally traumatized me. I think I was 8 years old when I saw it.
Hmm.
And there are certain things that I remember like yesterday. And I know I never saw this movie a second time because I was terrified of it. I was terrified of the thought of it. And as I got older, that fear never faded. And a part of me is like, you should watch that movie now and like face your fear. And it's probably, you'll probably laugh at it now. But the truth is, I'm almost scared because that is how badly it traumatized me. And there are certain images, like you say, and they're definitely not so graphic as like someone being electrocuted. It's more sort of esoteric fear, like really mysterious stuff that happens and unexplained things and like a really scary old lady and like, just like you don't know why it's scary, but it is. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But you don't have an image that like stands way out.
I have two images. One image is this character named Karen.
Hmm.
She's like the mystery character, right? So she's like there's this group of kids, and I can't remember the details because I only saw it once when I was 8 and I've never seen it again. But there's this group of kids, and I don't know if they go into the country or they go somewhere, and this girl, Karen, is maybe haunting the place. It's
Hmm.
kind of it's very fuzzy in my memory. And I just remember there's this scene and and like they see her and she's blindfolded. She's wearing
Hmm.
like a long dress. She's blindfolded, and her arms are out in front of her like this, and she's
Okay.
moving her fingers, standing like
Like
this,
zombie arms.
kind of zombie. And then there's these words: "The bell tolled, and Karen was gone."
Ooh, very poetic.
Okay. And I mean, those words to this day, the bell tolled and Karen was gone. Like those send shivers up my spine. And I remember my sister, who was scared of it too. She was freaked out as well, but she was 11. So she was like, way older. And she used to like years later, she would try to scare me. Like she'd put a blindfold on and she would do that. And she'd say, the bell tolled and Karen was gone. And so that freaked me out. If I even thought about that as a child, I would like have to run to my mom. Even if it was like the dead middle of the day, I'd have to run to her. Just thinking about it scared me. And I
Hmm.
will also tell you that from that moment on, I slept in bed with my mom for
Mm.
like years. Okay, my mom was single at the time. Okay, so there was technically space in the bed for me.
For years,
And
though.
I
Years.
mean, I'd have to ask her, But I would say probably a good 2 to 3 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Every night, like that was just where I slept. I just didn't sleep in my bed anymore after that. And it was that movie. It was like from one day to the next, like the switch happened. I became a terrified child. Like I almost can't even exaggerate how much that film traumatized me.
I mean, I guess that's why they, our parents were diligently trying to keep these things away.
I think you never know what's going to scare a kid. It could be something as an adult, you could be like, like something that you to you is just so not scary. It's just like
Hmm.
laughably like maybe this guy being electrocuted was so ridiculous and silly to any adult, but to a kid, you just never know.
Hmm.
Certain kids have like these, who knows what the reason is behind it. If there's some actual trigger that reminds them of something, or if it's just random, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, look at your little friend who used to watch horror films as a child. I mean,
Yeah. Chloe.
that every kid is different. And so, if I had seen horror films as a child, I mean, I wouldn't,
I mean, I
I
think she
can't
was
even
opposite.
imagine.
And we've played her clip on this show before about Chloe when she's 4 years old and she loves horror films. She's like the opposite of what we went through because she was so exposed to it in kind of a jokey, casual manner that for her, it almost,
Hmm.
she just knew that anything she saw was just like play. Like it was all just imaginary. And so it didn't
Hmm.
stick with her in this, at least with her personality, it didn't stick with her in this way that this is something that could really happen, or this is something that could be happening right outside your door, or like did happen and we happened to capture it on film or whatever. For her, it was always just blatant storytelling, over the top storytelling. But you're right, because I mean, it's even stuff from real life that like still sticks in my head. So, my father, when I was growing up, was a Presbyterian minister. And when we lived in Minnesota, when I was a little kid, the church that he was the minister of was a very strange building. It was a building it had been built upon and built upon and built upon, like all of these strange additions. And so it had this kind of, I don't know, like sort of bizarre maze like feel to it. Like, for instance, there would be hallways that were half a step off from other hallways. So to level it, there'd be like this little half step to
Hmm.
get you into it, or all these back passageways or closets where you could enter one closet and come out in a different hallway, which as a kid was a super fun place to play around. And quite
Yeah.
honestly, when you are the child of a minister, you spend a lot of time in the church with nobody there, pretending maybe that it's like your own castle or something with like your hundreds of rooms or whatever, your giant sanctuary, your own organ, all those things, which is pretty cool. Except this building was also really creepy. And, as you well know from the Caravaggio exhibit I just mentioned, when you really think about the imagery of Christianity, I mean, a lot of it's pretty freaky, and especially when you're a kid. And I remember that church, and I still to this day ask my dad kind of jokingly, like, why in the world did we have this picture hanging in this church? But there was a picture that I guess he said had been painted by somebody who was somehow affiliated with the congregation. But it hung over there like this big table where the session used to meet. And it was a picture of a hand, like an open hand, palm up, with a nail being driven through the hand with a stone. Okay, so like somebody's using a stone to bash a nail through somebody else's hand. And it's a close up. I can't think of anything more unpleasant
Mm.
to look at when you're stuck in a meeting, right? But as a kid, I always thought that was the creepiest picture in the world. So distasteful and so awful and so disturbing. And then the church got broken into. And I don't believe that whoever broke into the church was able to steal much of anything at all. But I remember going into the church after it happened, me and my dad, like I'm sure there were other people there, but like why it was me and him together, I don't know. And we were walking around sort of surveying the damage and if anything had been taken. And these people, whoever they were, had tried to get into various rooms throughout the church, not knowing what the rooms were, like what was behind the door. And one of the things that they had done was
Uh-huh.
try to get into the nursery. And the nursery had just
Uh-huh.
like a little tiny square window in a solid door otherwise. And that window was laced with like little what would it be? Like little metal lines,
Like a mesh,
like a
like a
mesh, yeah, to
mesh.
keep you from
Yeah.
breaking the window,
I
basically.
right.
So they had tried to bash that window. It hadn't worked, but they had left like blood from their
Ugh.
hand, no doubt, all over the windowsill below it. And somehow I associated those two things together, the painting and then this like little bit of blood that was on the nursery window. And then even though they clean it up, they fix it up, the blood is no longer there. Like for the rest of my time, I picture there being blood on the windowsill of that room also. So every now and then you're walking in these dark hallways and then you pass the creepy window with the blood and then you're like all of a sudden you feel a creep up your spine and you're like dart into the closet that you know comes out in a different hallway to escape whatever that is. Yeah, so it's just I find that those memories being like so vivid and sticking around so blatantly, even as an adult, is sort of interesting.
I think it just has to do with how vivid some of our childhood memories are. This is a thing that is, I think, particular to childhood. I'm thinking about this a lot right now because I was reading the first volume of Proust's In Search of Lost Time, and it's all about his visual memories. Not just visual, just all of his memories as a child. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, of course, it's an adult writing, and it's an incredibly gifted writer who's writing. It's not an ordinary person who's like, yeah, I remember when I was a kid and this thing happened. So obviously, it's a work of art, but it's brilliant because it captures. I mean, I can't describe it any better than that. It's just like if somebody who is a brilliant, incredibly gifted writer were to be able to enter the mind of himself as a child and write about everything that happened, but from the viewpoint of a child and really capture the sense of the importance of things as a child, but with the language of an adult and a genius adult. So it was incredible. I definitely recommend that book for anyone who has a lot of time on their hands because it's very hard to read.
Yes, I saw
But it does.
I saw your stories
I
about
post.
it and how it took you two
Yeah.
months to get through it.
Oh my gosh. And it was only 400 and maybe 480 pages, which is, pretty average for a book, I'd say, on the long side, but certainly not a tome. And I mean, I would just be like, I mean, I at one point, I read it when I was like, Aurelio, you got to hear this. Because we were like sitting at breakfast or something. And I'm like, this is one sentence. And I read to him this sentence because his sentences are so like you think Dickens has long
Right?
sentences. You think Henry James has long sentences. Dickens and Henry James have nothing on Marcel Proust. I looked it up. I was like, what is the average sentence length? And I can't remember what it was, but I did find a little I think it was actually an AI summary, which is sad. But it said some of his sentences are extremely long. They're known to be as long as 900 words.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, 900 words for one sentence. And I read a couple of them to Aurelio, and he was just like, his eyes were just, it can't possibly go on any further. Like, there can't possibly be any more clauses in this sentence. Like, what is he even talking about anymore? And that's why it takes so long because you're like, you're like on the seventh or eighth clause, and you're like, wait a second, what? Wait, what was he saying? And you got to go back to the beginning of the sentence. What was the subject? Where's the verb? Okay, all right, let me try to follow it through again.
Uh-huh.
And the other reason it's so hard to read is because it's so slow, just so tediously slow. And it's just like, as much as the writing is so beautiful, it's just, you're just like, I can't, this doesn't hold my attention. Like, it can't hold my attention. It's like reading a book of poetry. Like, you want to read like one or two poems, and then it's like, okay, that's good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good for
Yeah.
today. I don't need to read any more poetry.
Yeah, because it
So,
just starts
anyway.
to blend together after a while.
Yes, yes, yes. So anyway, I loved
Yeah,
it, but I also was bored by it. If that's possible, it's possible.
definitely.
But to get back to the story at hand, to get back to the topic at hand, you mentioned Caravaggio and Aurelio,
Hmm.
and maybe Aurelio is a bit like Chloe in the sense that he has been exposed to Caravaggio and other artists from a very, very young age. I started taking Aurelio to museums at 6 months. And when he was two, maybe three, really little, he could recognize a Caravaggio painting on
Hmm.
site in the sense like I'd open up an art book And I'd say, okay, point to the Caravaggio paintings. And even if he didn't know the painting, like he could recognize it from the style.
Yeah, I feel like I
Um,
remember that. I feel like you demonstrated that to me where he had a book out and he was just like flip, 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 flip Caravaggio.
yeah, I have a video of that. I have a video of that, which I can send to you if you wanna stick it in.
You see one yet? That's right. You see one? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Caravaggio, 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 Caravaggio. Watermelon,
Yeah, that looks like some kind of melon.
melon. It's a melon.
Are any of these Caravaggio? What is it? A shell? Oh,
Beautiful.
beautiful, yeah. Are you seeing any more Caravaggio paintings?
But so the only thing I can think of is that has seen those kinds of images. I mean, I don't remember how old he was when we went to Barberini or Palazzo Barberini, and he saw the beheading of Holofernes for the first time. He was probably 5 or 6. And he saw other things, probably younger than that. So I guess just because it wasn't like an image that he came across all of a sudden without ever having seen anything like that.
Yeah.
And maybe because I talked about this is the work of art by this painter that I really like, and so he immediately knew in his mind that this was just a painting that came from someone's
Yeah.
imagination in a sense. And maybe that's why.
Maybe you should ask him sometime what is like the scariest image he thinks he came across first in life and have him describe what it is. And we can
Okay.
revisit the idea at some point.
Sure, I will.
Imagine yourself stepping into the heart of one of the world's most legendary cities, with every turn revealing secrets only a select few have had the privilege to witness. You're not just a tourist, you're an insider, and you are experiencing Rome as it's meant to be seen. This October, from the 5th to the 11th, 2025, for one unforgettable week, Tiffany and I are offering you the chance to embark on an exclusive, tailor-made journey through the Eternal City. Each morning we'll be your expert guides, taking you to Rome's hidden gems, places not found in guidebooks, places not crowded with tourists. We're talking about secret courtyards, forgotten chapels, and ancient ruins off the beaten path, and you'll see it all while learning about the stories that have shaped this magnificent city. But it's more than just sightseeing. It's about experiencing Rome. From sipping coffee in a secluded cafe overlooking the city to wandering through quiet, century-old streets where the footsteps of history seem to echo, and every moment is crafted to make you feel like you've unlocked the city's most intimate secrets. This is me, Katy, here, with your invitation to step beyond the surface of Rome, to go deeper, to truly connect with a place that has captured the world's imagination for millennia. But here's the thing. This isn't a trip for everyone. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for those who want to invest in something more meaningful than just another vacation. You're not paying for just a tour. You're paying for a personal experience that might change how you see the world. So if you're intrigued, if you're ready to take that step and discover Rome in a way that only a lucky few ever will, then don't wait. Reach out to us now. Let us show you Rome like you've never seen it before. You can find details at our website, thebittersweetlife.net. You can also email us, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. Ready to make some history? Let's walk through it together this October. And give yourself something to look forward to. Back to the show.
I want to say one other thing before we end, which is so Caravaggio saw death very young. because he witnessed his father and his grandfather dying of plague at the same time when he was 4.
Oof.
So, and back in those days, if there was plague in the house, they boarded up the house so no one could get in or out. So he's stuck in a house with plague and sees his father and grandfather die a miserable death, which
Yikes.
very likely stuck with him and may very well be one of the reasons his art is so violent in a sense, or at least so raw and
Yeah.
horrifying and perhaps. But here's another thing. When Caravaggio, okay, in 1599, you know about this story, Katie, but our listeners probably don't all know about it. A young girl is beheaded in front of Castel Sant'Angelo, a girl named Beatrice Cenci. She was about maybe 20 at most. I won't go into the whole history of it, but she had been convicted of plotting to murder her father, who happened to be very, very abusive and deserved what he got. But she got caught, she and her co-conspirators. And she was beheaded by axe, because that's how they did it in those days.
Yikes.
And witnessing that event were a full-grown Caravaggio, so no excuse that he was a child. He was an adult by that time. But there was someone else. I mean, there were lots of people who witnessed it, but there was one person who we know was there. And that is a 6-year-old Artemisia Gentileschi.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, tell
she
everybody
witnessed
everybody who that is.
So Artemisia Gentileschi was an incredible painter. She's considered to be a Caravaggesca, which means like she basically paints in Caravaggio style, but she had her own style. And she, from in the period that she was most active, which is sort of like the 20-year period, sort of overlapping with the end of Caravaggio's life and continuing for another 20 years, most art historians consider her to be the greatest artist of that period, of that, I'm not going to say of the whole world, but of at least what was happening in Rome at that time. So not just the best female artist, like the best artist, like full stop. And her father had been an artist, and her father had been a friend of Caravaggio. And it's also pretty much acknowledged by art critics that she is highly superior to her father. But her father being Caravaggio's friend, they went together and he brought his little daughter to an execution. It was normal, actually, at those times to bring your children to executions, because it was like a way of sort of like giving them a good moral scare. Like, don't be bad or this could happen to you.
Well, when you put it that way, my Richard Pryor story feels pretty stupid.
Well, it was a different time, Katie. It was a different time. But if you look at her art, there are at least two versions of the beheading of Holofernes, in which she depicts a woman beheading a man. And, you know, I think it's impossible that memory did not influence those paintings, you know? At such a young age, like it couldn't not have.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Well, all right. Well, we should leave it there. I do feel like maybe one of the bigger ideas here is that parents today can actually shelter their children. When you think about Caravaggio being boarded up in a house with people with the plague, I'm sure that's not what his parents hoped for him. But, you know, at the same point, what a horrible way to come online, as we would say today, you know, at age 4.
Yeah.
So.
I think that some of Caravaggio's evident trauma that we know from his life and evident mental health problems definitely stemmed from that.
All right. Well, we will leave it there. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye.
Bye.
Do you like Caravaggio? Why do you like Caravaggio?
Because I have this picture.
Well,
And
are
this
there
picture.
any other Caravaggios on there? That one, let me see. Let me see. You're right, that is Caravaggio.
Don't miss your chance to explore the Rome most tourists never get to see by coming to Rome with us. This October 5th to the 11th, 2025, we'll take you through the history, art, and stories of Rome in a way that you will never forget. Visit thebittersweetlife.net for more information or email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com.